What if I told you that there is a dark force that hunts down lovers on Valentine's Day? A force that can make or break your relationship, depending on how true your love is. A force that has been around since ancient times, and has claimed many victims. Would you believe me? Well, you should. Because this is not a fiction. This is a true story. A story of Mark and Mia, two college sweethearts who decided to spend Valentine's Day in Rome, the city of love. But little did they know, they were about to face the ultimate test of their love. A test that could end in bliss or horror. This is the story of the Curse of Valentine. Mark and Mia were college sweethearts who had been dating for 3 years. They loved each other deeply and planned to spend Valentine's Day together, as they always did. They had a special tradition. Every year, they would go to a different city and explore its culture, history, and attractions. They believed that this was more fun and adventurous than staying at home. This year, they decided to go to Rome, the city of love. They booked a flight, a hotel, and a tour guide. They were excited to see the Colosseum, the Vatican, the Trevi Fountain, and other famous landmarks. They also wanted to try the local cuisine and maybe buy some souvenirs. They landed in Rome on a sunny afternoon, feeling excited and nervous. They took a taxi to their hotel, a cozy and elegant place near the city center. The receptionist greeted them with a warm smile, gave them their room key, and handed them a brochure. The brochure had a map of the city and some recommendations for places to visit, restaurants to eat, and shops to buy. It also had a warning in red letters: "Beware of the Curse of Valentine." The warning looked like a drop of blood on a white paper. Mark and Mia looked at the warning and laughed. They thought it was a joke or marketing gimmick. They ignored it and went to their room. They unpacked their bags and rested for a while. They decided to go out for dinner and then take a walk around the city. They wanted to see the night lights and feel the romantic atmosphere. But what they didn't know was that the curse was real, and it was all in watching them. What would happen to them on Valentine's Day? Would they pass the test or fail it? Would they live happily ever after or die horribly? Stay tuned to find out. They left their hotel and hailed a taxi. They asked the driver to take them to a nearby restaurant that had good reviews. The driver nodded and drove away. He was a middle-aged man with a thick accent and a friendly smile. He asked them where they were from and how long they were staying. He also asked them if they knew about the Curse of Valentine. Mark and Mia exchanged a glance and burst into laughter. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. "Are you serious?" Mark asked, trying to suppress his giggles. "Is this some kind of prank or something?" Mia added, rolling her eyes. "We've seen the warning in the brochure, but we thought it was a joke." "Come on, a Curse of Valentine? That sounds like something out of a cheesy horror movie." They asked him to explain, hoping he would admit it was a hoax. But he didn't. He was dead serious. The driver sighed and shook his head. He said that the Curse of Valentine was a legend that dated back to ancient times. On February 14th, the day of Saint Valentine, the patron saint of love, a dark force would roam the city, looking for couples who were in love. He said that the dark force would find them and test their love. If their love was true, they would pass the test and be blessed with happiness and fortune. But if their love was false, they would fail the test and be cursed with misery and doom. Mark and Mia listened to the driver and felt amused. They thought he was telling them a fairy tale or a horror story. They didn't believe him and they didn't take him seriously. They thanked him for the entertainment and told him they were not afraid of the curse. They told him they loved each other and nothing could break them apart. The driver smiled and said, "I hoped you were right." He said, "I wished them luck and warned them to be careful." He said, "I had seen many couples fall victim to the curse and suffer terrible fates, such as dying, going mad, disappearing, or worse. I didn't want you to be the next ones." Mark and Mia nodded and said they appreciated his concern, that they were not worried. "We are confident in our love and we are ready to face any challenge," they said. "We are looking forward to our Valentine's Day and we are sure it would be the best one ever." The driver shrugged and said, "I hoped you were right." He said, "I wished you a happy Valentine's Day," and drove them to the restaurant. He dropped them off and wished them a good night. He drove away and left them alone. Mark and Mia got out of the taxi and walked to the restaurant. They entered and were greeted by a waiter who showed them to their table. They ordered their food and wine and toasted to their love. They ate, drank, talked, and laughed. They had a wonderful time and felt happy and relaxed. They finished their meal and paid the bill. They decided to leave the restaurant and take a walk around the city. They wanted to see the sights and enjoy the night. They left the restaurant and walked hand in hand. They saw the Colosseum, the Vatican, the Trevi Fountain, and other famous landmarks. They took pictures, kissed, and whispered sweet nothings. They felt the love in the air and in their hearts. They walked for a long time until they reached a bridge that crossed the river. They stopped and leaned on the railing. They looked at the water, the stars, and each other. They felt a surge of emotion and hugged. They said they loved each other, and they meant it. They were about to kiss when they heard a voice. A deep, raspy voice that came from behind them. "Hello, my dear lovers. You have arrived at the curse of Valentine. I hope you are ready for some fun." They turned around and saw a man. A tall, thin man dressed in a black suit and a red tie. He had pale skin, dark hair, and red eyes. He had a smile that was not a smile. He had a look that was not a look. He was the dark force. He was the curse. Mark and Leah gasped and felt a chill. They realized they were in danger. They realized they had made a mistake. A big mistake. They tried to run, but it was too late. The man grabbed them and pulled them closer. "I have been watching you and have chosen you. I have a game for you, a game of love and death. If you win, you can leave. If you lose, well, you will see." He said the game is simple. He said, "I will ask you 3 questions about your relationship. You must answer truthfully or face consequences. You need to answer quickly or you would die." He also mentioned that you have to give identical answers or you will die. He asked the first question. "When did you first meet?" Mark and Leah looked at each other and felt confused. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to do. They hesitated. They opened their mouths. Mark said, "We met at the library 2 years ago." Leah responded quickly, "We met at the cafeteria 3 years ago." They gave different answers. They gave wrong answers. They heard a really loud scream from behind that scared them. They felt a really strong pain in their chests. They saw a really bright light. And just like that, they were gone. The man laughed and let go of their bodies. He said, "You had failed the first question, and the game was over. You lied to each other and to yourselves. Your love is false, and you deserve the curse." He said, "I would find another couple and play the game again. I would never stop. I am the curse of Valentine." He walked away and left them alone. They were dead. They were cursed. Before we dive into our second story, please hit the like, subscribe, and share buttons if you enjoyed the first one. Now, let's get into our second story. Love is supposed to be eternal, a bond that transcends time. But what happens when love takes a dark and twisted turn? A group of friends who left the haunted place on Valentine's Day will soon face their most terrifying experience. It was Valentine's Day, and a group of 7 people, 3 guys and 4 girls, decided to celebrate it in a club. They had a lot of fun, drinking and dancing, until one of the couples came up with an idea to make the night more special. They suggested visiting the most haunted hotel nearby, which was rumored to have a dark and twisted history. Everyone agreed, except for one girl who was terrified of the idea. She tried to persuade them not to go, but they pressured her into joining them. They got into their cars and drove to the hotel, unaware of the horror that awaited them. The hotel was once an asylum where unspeakable atrocities took place. The owner bought it and turned it into a hotel, hoping to erase its past. But after a few years, the hotel became a cursed place where guests died mysteriously or disappeared without a trace. The hotel was shut down and abandoned, and no one dared to enter it again. The group reached the gate, but it was locked. One of them had a cutter in his car, so he used it to break the gate and they drove inside. They parked their cars in front of the hotel and looked at the building. It gave them a creepy and eerie vibe, but they shrugged it off. The girl who refused to go earlier warned them again not to go inside, but they ignored her. They tried to open the front door, but it was jammed. They decided to look for a back door. They found one and entered the hotel. As they walked further, their phone signals were cut off. They didn't mind it, thinking it was normal for such an old and isolated place. They continued to explore the hotel, looking for anything interesting or scary. They didn't notice the small and subtle changes that were happening around them, as the hotel was slowly trapping them inside. They reached the main corridor of the hotel, where they could see their cars through the windows. They decided to check out one of the rooms, hoping to find some clues about the hotel's history. They opened the door and entered the room. They flashed their lights around, but there was nothing remarkable. They were about to leave when their flashlights flickered and went off. They saw a shadowy figure standing in the corner of the room, where there was nothing before. They screamed, thinking it was one of their friends playing a prank on them. But they realized they were all together, and no one was missing. The figure moved towards the bathroom, and one of them bravely followed up. He went inside the bathroom, and the others heard a loud thud. They rushed inside and found their friend lying on the floor, dead. They didn't know how it happened, but they were terrified and wanted to escape. They made a mistake, though. They didn't know there was no way out. They ran back to the corridor, looking for the back door. But they couldn't find it. It was as if it never existed. They decided to stick together and wait for the morning, hoping someone would come and rescue them. They huddled together in a dimly lit part of the corridor, trying to calm each other down and reassure themselves that nothing would happen. That they were wrong. The lights flickered again, and they heard the voice of their dead friend, calling them from the room. They panicked and ran, but they got separated. They heard a loud and sinister laugh echoing through the hotel. They didn't know where they were or what was happening. They were doomed. One couple ran together, hoping to find a way out. They went up to the first floor, where they saw a wheelchair and a patient on it. A nurse was instructing another nurse to take him to his room. They thought they were hallucinating, but they followed them anyway. They reached a room where the nurses left the patient and went away. They approached the patient, hoping it could help them. But as they got closer, they heard a voice behind them.
Who did you meet?
The voice asked. They turned around and saw the nurse holding a syringe. She had a twisted smile on her face. They screamed and ran, but the door was locked. They banged on the door, but no one heard them. The room started to catch fire, and they burned alive. The remaining three heard a scream and ran towards it, but it was too late. They saw the smoke coming out of the room, and they knew their friends were gone. One of the girls felt a hand grabbing her and pulling her to the other side of the corridor. She shouted for help, but the others couldn't reach her. She was dragged away by an unseen force. The last two were left alone, and they didn't know what to do. They decided to go back to the ground floor, where they could see their cars. They hoped they could break the windows and get out. They ran down the stairs, but they were stopped by a horde of ghosts. They were the former patients and staff of the asylum, who died in agony and pain. They surrounded them and attacked them, tearing them apart. Only one person survived the night. She was the girl who refused to go to the hotel in the first place. She somehow managed to hide from the ghosts and the fire and waited for the dawn. When the sun rose, the hotel doors opened automatically, and she ran out. She was traumatized by what she saw and felt in the hotel, and she knew no one would ever believe her. But the worst part was, the police found the bodies of her friends, and they looked like they were murdered by her. She had blood on her clothes and hands, and there were traces of her DNA on the weapons. She was arrested and accused of killing her friends, and no one listened to her story. She was sent to a mental hospital, where she spent the rest of her life, haunted by the memories of that night.